Artifacts that date back to about 3000 BC prove that boxing, kicking, and grappling were practiced in the Sumerian kingdom of Mesopotamia. In 648 BC, at the 33rd Ancient Olympic Games, the sport of pankration appeared. It was a few holds-barred Olympic martial arts sport which consisted of wrestling, kicking, and boxing. Some experts believe it was a wrestling art that allowed kicking and punching. Others believe that it was a form of kickboxing that permitted wrestling. Biting, eye gouging, and scratching were prohibited. Pankration is once again an Olympic sport similar to today's mixed martial arts contest.
Basically combines the techniques of wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, judo, basically every martial art there is. That's why they call it mixed martial arts. That's also why it's probably, in my opinion, the most exciting form of competition that there is. It's, you know, a human chess game, because you have to be versed in every aspect of every bit of martial arts, because if you're not, your opponent will exploit your weakness.
When I engage in a ultimate fighting or NHB or whatever you want to call it, I'm a willing participant, and I'm testing my skills against another skilled opponent. Most every opponent I've ever had has been a very honorable person. You know, we shake hands before, we shake hands after, and we fight hard in between. But it's a battle of skills and a test of wills. It's an honorable sport.
One of the things that people love about you and continue to really enjoy about you is your ability to beat bigger opponents. You're what, about 6'1", 180 pounds?
You all right?
What is the secret to your ability to take on bigger foes?
Well, I don't beat them up. I subdue them. Do it the nice way.
If we go down to Rule 48.1, you have specific rules about ultimate fighting, and ultimate fights are not allowed to be licensed, or are not licensed in the state of West Virginia. I guess the question would be, why is that?
Well, laying on their backs, you're allowed to strike when you're down, you're allowed to hit and punch when a person is down laying on their back. They have submission holds by either choke holds.
If you're choked unconscious, which is very rare, but it does happen, and you basically recover within 10 seconds, you're fine. A choke out is not a strangulation by air. And what happens is it stops the blood flow to your head, which causes you to go unconscious for a few seconds.
Pressure points, getting an arm or a joint into a certain situation that someone has to submit. We just don't see that as a safety. We see it as a safety issue. We don't see it as safety for the fighters.
In the course of a boxing match, you're going to take thousands of punches throughout the rounds. Even if you win, I'm going to take a couple hundred punches to get to the end of that fight. Where in mixed martial arts, there's so many different ways to win. There can be a submission, be a tap out, ref stoppage. The only way to win is not a knockout. So therefore, you might only take 3-4 hits, if any.
Last fight I had, it was can't beat that one. The guy did not touch me one time. 20-minute fight. He did not hit me one time.
I think we've got some footage of Royce in action, and we just want to show our viewers what he's like when he actually gets in the ring. And I think people will be surprised at you really don't pound people into submission. Like you say, you're all about neutralizing your foe.
It's based on technique and leverage. You don't have to be big, strong. You don't have to be fast. You just got to know what you're doing.
You don't see the injuries in Tough Man because of the safety factors that we put into effect in these types of things.
Having competed in both, I find that in a strange way that the mixed martial art is a little bit more humane, I think.
You have different levels of knockouts, 1 through 5. 5 obviously being the worst, and somebody that gets knocked out, level 5 knockout, could be knocked out for 2-3 minutes, end up in the hospital, obviously with a concussion. So therefore you have a recovery time that could be at least a couple months.
Having competed at a high level in boxing, I don't think it's any, I can say unequivocally that if it's well refereed, it's certainly no more dangerous than boxing. In boxing, you get knocked down and you likely have a concussion, and they give you sort of 8 seconds or whatever, a standing 8 count to sort of shake off that concussion, which of course you can't. shake off the effects of a concussion in that time, and then they go ahead and get right back to it. And so you take a sort of a sustained beating. In no holds barred or ultimate fighting, normally when somebody gets a decided advantage, the end follows very quickly, and so the guy doesn't take that sustained pummeling that he might otherwise take in boxing.
I remember 20 years ago in Charleston, there was a lot more interest surrounding Golden Glove events. They used to have huge events down at the Civic Center. How many boxing events are there each year in our state?
You're correct. Several years ago, back in the 70s and 80s, you would see 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people at the Charleston Civic Center for a 5-night event. Spectacular.
Right.
And that's dwindled somewhat. You don't see as much activity in the amateurs as you do at that particular time.
There's been a recent study done that said that mixed martial arts is the fastest growing sport in America. Last year, for instance, it had the highest gate sales in Nevada, Las Vegas, beating out such fights as Oscar De La Hoya, some Trinidad fights, some other fights like that. So that means that it's growing in popularity. To be in the top 5 of gate sales is incredible for a sport that's not marketed nearly as enough as boxing is. Also on a international level, in Japan you're looking at crowds that exceed numbers of 90,000. That's pretty much comparable to our Super Bowl. So if you're looking at a sport that's having 90,000 people watch it, it's obviously very, very popular.
Now you still make your home out in Torrance, California. You're from originally Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Why are you in Charleston? What brings you to West Virginia?
I have a representative of mine who teach over here for me. So I just come over a couple times a year. I try to come over and just make sure that he's on the right track.
Roger, let me ask you, in terms of ultimate fighting, is the nature of the sport the case that this will never be regulated in the state of West Virginia? I mean, would the essence of the sport have to change before they could get a license for this state? Or are there things that they could do involving safety that would allow them to be regulated?
I'm probably going to defer that to the commissioner, but I think it comes back to that safety issue again. If the commission maybe at some future date could be assured that the fighters, that there are enough safety measures put in place for the fighters, who knows? I mean, I can't say that. There's a whole commission that would decide upon that, and a legislature that would promulgate the rules and regulations. But keep in mind that the ultimate responsibility of the commission is to protect the fighter.
We've been in talks with them before, and those talks even got as far as they were going to go ahead and let us have competitions, but the athletic commission said you have to use our referees and our judges. And the problems, what made those talks break down a couple years ago was that would make our sport unsafe. If I have a referee that's never seen the competitions, never been educated, he's not going to know when somebody's in trouble or what's going on, especially when they get to the ground and start using summations or strikes. And then somebody will get hurt. And that was the problem then. Same thing with the judges. If a judge doesn't know what's going on when they're on the ground, obviously it's not going to be judged correctly. Actually more rules in mixed martial arts than there is in boxing.
I knew it was going to be big. I mean, any product that you bring into America, the world will see it. My family's been doing this for a long time back in Brazil. So, but people did not see it, people didn't know until it came to America.